here's what's happened. I'm going to read it verbatim. This is what I got this morning from our colleagues in Israel, and this is what is being proposed. It is significant because it is at least a sign that we are close to a release of hostages. This is what it will look like, at least phase one of this would look like. 53 hostages will be initially released, and that could go up as high as 90 or 100. The Israeli cabinet, both the war cabinet and the government cabinet, is meeting tonight to approve the deal under which Israel is expected to accept at least 53 abductees. This will include children, elderly women, and mothers, and release about 150 Palestinian women and children. Hamas will receive a 4-day respite in the fighting, during which it will try to locate at least 20 more abductees. It's thought that those abductees may be with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, so that's where probably they are. We'll know tonight, we'll know within hours, actually, if the Israelis are going to accept it. What's interesting about this, and I think important, and this is important, these things, you've got to be very flexible because they could change on a moment's notice.
Absolutely, and we've seen that. Like I said earlier, that we go to bed on these calls and these texts, and we have one cause of action or a plan of action in place, and by the time we wake up, it's all changed. Early in the morning. So we do have to be able to kind of just turn on a dime and just keep hoping and praying that the hostages are released, however that happens.
Look, when you're dealing with a military operation, stopping is very difficult. But I'm sure there's been an assessment made by the military that this is something they can do, or at least they think they can do, Logan, in order to proceed on this.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that there are comments coming in, maybe one coming from Rumble, from Comfort, said, how do you make a deal with a terrorist organization and trust them when there is this sort of situation? How do you even know that they're going to live up to their end of the bargain?
You don't. And Cece smirked at that, and I'll let her talk about that. But you have to just operate with your eyes open
as
here.
As if they are a legitimate. You have to deal with them as if they're a legitimate.
Yeah, you got to deal with them as if they're a legitimate negotiating power. They are the authority in Gaza. Qatar is the intermediary, but they are terrorists. So nothing they say you should believe.
Yeah, and that's really my smirk, is because every time any of these deals kind of come to the table, my initial statement is, well, we'll see. We'll see what's happened. Because we actually there have been days previous that they said there are deals on the table. Yeah. So we'll see. I pray that Hamas does do the right thing and they do release these hostages. And just like Logan said, it is encouraging that they have 100 that are still alive to be released.
You know, it's also important for people to understand we filed on these people at the United Nations just last week.
Yes. So we filed communication with the Working Group on Enforced or Involuntary Disappearances, and their mandate is to find any citizen who's abducted. They are under a mandate to try and find their location and work with the forces that actually abducted these victims. And so we have several cases there, and we're adding several cases more.
Six more that we're going to add this week, including one with women and children, so we're going to get on that right away.
We should not be bifurcating the hostages into groups. We need all of the hostages released. If we don't have all of the hostages released, then we shouldn't give any deal. Once you start separating these hostages, you are creating a system where the remaining hostages have a higher bounty on their head. This is a really bad precedent. We should be demanding that Hamas release all of the hostages. They don't need a long pause for this. They just need to have political will to release them. I think it's important that our Secretary of State be camped out in Qatar and putting the pressure on Hamas leaders who are comfortably ensconced in Doha, and they are, calling the shots inside Gaza in a comfortable place where they're counting their money. And I think this is unacceptable.
Because we were planning on a major, we were going to probably have 10 or 15 ACLJ, ECLJ folks in both in Brussels for the European Parliament and also in Strasbourg and then in Paris for meetings. What's happening now is a lot of that dynamic's going to change. So this is where flexibility in these negotiations, we know this, we do a lot of hostage negotiations, is part of it. But the Qataris, obviously, if they are able to broker this, Qatar then has made a major move, Logan, here. that maybe they've got a window open to continue whittling this down. This is a process of, the more you hit the targets in Gaza, the more likely it is Hamas is going to need a reprieve. The more likely it is we'll get hostages released.
Sure, and there are comments going in. Obviously, it's a positive move that hostages are
Anytime
getting freed.
you get anybody out, it's a positive
But I guess
move.
there is just that concern of what does that mean in terms of the ongoing conflict and the potential for what you consider an Israeli win.
Israel's goal is the elimination of Hamas. That is the military target. That is priority. For a lot of them, it's priority 1. Priority 2 is the hostage release. For some, it's the same. It's all the same. I think, look, Hamas has to be eliminated. Gaza cannot be turned over to the Palestinian Authority. That's where the Biden administration has this totally wrong. That will not work. It doesn't work. Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the PA yesterday, said that Israel was responsible for the massacre at the concert, that it was some drone that went awry. And this is absurd. But of course, he denied the Holocaust, too. Mahmoud Abbas got his PhD from a university in Russia. So, and you know where in the old Soviet Union. So you know where these people are coming from. So they're not a trustworthy partner. We've got a comment coming in on Rumble saying, hey, Hamas is a terrorist organization. How do you trust a terrorist organization? And the answer to that is you don't trust the terrorist organization, but you work but they are the authority. I hate even saying that. So you have to work with them at least to try to secure the release of some of these.
Yeah, in Gaza right now, it is Hamas who is the governing authority there. And yes, they are terrorists, and yes, you cannot trust them. That is all true. But when you're trying to negotiate the release of hostages that Hamas is in physical control of, you have to, really just trust that they will do the right thing. And I think that's where international eyes and international pressure helps, because Hamas, I think, maybe feels more pressure that they need to honor their word when the world is watching them.
Well, I want to say this to our donors. We are, as Logan said, we've got about 10 days left, a little bit less, on our Faith and Freedom Drive. And it's hard for me to describe for you the amount of work that's going into on the hostage situation and defending Israel. We are literally on Zoom calls every morning with lawyers and advisors and government affairs people from all over the world. We do it. Cece's on it. We do it every morning, usually 6 days a week, to get ready for what's the kind of the day messaging points. And obviously, a lot of things changed in the last 24 hours and may change more tonight. This is all happening because of your support for the ACLJ. None of this would happen, whether it's the hostages getting freed, whether it's 6 new UN filings that we're about to do, major meetings in Europe next week that'll be conducted by our ACLJ team and others. And if you can make that gift monthly, you become an ACLJ champion. And that drastically changes how we can engage these things. So I encourage you to become part of the Faith and Freedom Drive at aclj.org/faith and freedom. Any amount you donate will be doubled.